So with that, I'll go into some research we've just completed, and then I'll later on talk about a project we're still working on. This project, as like I mentioned, once somebody harvests a walrus, they have 30 days to get the tusks tagged. We have taggers and several taggers in all the villages up and down the coast within the range of the walrus. And they started this program. Fish and Game initially started this in the 60s, and then it sort of languished and didn't really get real developed. And then when Fish and Wildlife Service, when the state gave up managing walruses for several reasons, Fish and Wildlife started up a program in 1980 that really didn't get going until 1990. So basically we've been tagging and measuring tusks since 1990 for everyone that has submitted. And since these are shared or bilateral traits, they call them, you have your pair of tusks on an animal, they're pretty much under the control of the same genes. So under ideal conditions, they should develop very similarly to each other. Now, if the population is stressed or in having trouble or something, you'll see some differences start to creep in between these bilateral traits because they're moving resources to other things like reproduction or maintenance of fat or whatever have you. So people have looked at this what they call fluctuating asymmetry, which is just the difference between paired traits like tusks, and have found some pretty good relationships with habitat changes that they can document, nutritional status, body condition, some genetic diversity measures, contaminant loads, and things like that. So since we had this large database of all these tusks that had been measured for all these years, I decided to take a look at that and see if we could determine if this was going on in walruses, and we could see it in these tusks that we've been measuring for decades. So as I mentioned, it was thought that the population was at or exceeded carrying capacity late 70s, early 1980s, which certainly would have put a number of individuals under stress because they have lack of food and competition for resources and things like that. And of course, lately we've been seeing this loss of sea ice in the summer that may be differentially affecting females and young animals. So we decided to take a look at this and see if we could determine if this fluctuating asymmetry, if we could measure it in the population, and if it was related to these stressors, using this one index, which is basically just the difference between the right and the left side, right and left tusks, the absolute value of what that difference would be, and determine if it differed between males and females. And as you're doing this, of course, you have to take into account error when people make these measurements, because these differences can be fairly small, and in some cases the error associated with measuring whatever you're measuring, whatever trait, in this case a tusk, could be larger than what this fluctuating asymmetry measure is. So basically, when a person brings in a tusk, they get measured for circumference, which is usually done right there below the gum line, and then total length along there. And of course, this is just the tag that we stick on it when they bring it in. So in our database, we've got thousands of pairs of tusks, as you can see, over 20,000, pretty well evenly distributed by males and females, going back from 1990 to 2014. The majority of these measurements are taken by taggers that we have out in the villages. So when people harvest a walrus, they can just take the tusk to their local tagger and get it tagged and measured and stuff. So like I mentioned, you know, we do need to account for measurement error. We had 10 pairs of tusks in the office, as well as about 20 some odd single pairs that we were able to do a little assessment of measurement error. Having 3 people that have never done anything with wildlife as far as measurements or anything like that, as well as 3 experienced personnel in our office. And there's a bunch of stuff you can do statistical wise to try to get estimates of what this measurement area is. So we did that. For looking at the trend over time, used very statistical model looking at year and sex as the main effects, individual walruses as a random effect, and looking at the interaction between year and sex in the model would tell you if that was came out significant, that there was some divergent trends between males and females, and if that was the result, we would look at some ways of fitting curves to the data to try to see what that trend was. Basically, measurement error was pretty small. Overall, it was like 0.6%. It's only 10% between the 2 groups of measures, novices and experienced people. It was less than 15% of the index of fluctuating asymmetry. The proportional error is just sort of a measure relative to some indices. It was fairly low, and repeatability is a measure of basically that, how well the measurements can be repeated with a degree of precision. That was pretty high. At 0.981 would be, of course, perfect. For the trend, you can see that since 1990 it declined by about 3.2% per year for both males and females combined. And basically, the estimates in the 90s were greater than those in the 2000s, and those were greater than those in the 2010s, and so on and so forth. Nice linear decline there. The interaction term was significant, so it suggested there were some differences between males and females. Overall, the measure estimate for males was about 40% greater than that for females, and the decline in males was about 28% steeper. Basically, the trend for males was a straight linear decline through the time series. For females, it was a little different. It was a kind of a polynomial curve that declined pretty rapidly and then sort of leveled off, and has lately sort of started to go back up again.
Can I say something?
Sure.
From a traditional hunter or subsistence provider, from what I learned, from what I seen, experienced, there was the skin boats were the main transportation at the time when they were going out walrus hunting.
Mm-hmm.
And the skin boat was used by, they got the skin from the females, and a lot of females were being used, or just to get for the skin boats. The skin boats were used for at least 2 seasons, depends on the season. And majority of the females were being not only used for skin boats, but the female also provided the food for our traditional food, the breast, the calf, of course.
Mm-hmm.
Majority of those hunts were trying to look for the female with calves, because that was our delicatessen food that we really wanted. The males were there, yeah, but majority of the time as a hunter we were going after females because they got more.
Mm-hmm.
And the calves were being used for traditional ropes,
right, yeah,
that they needed for. That could be at least part of the reason why some of the females were declining. I'm just saying.
Yeah.